and a half. I'm still a white guy with thick hair. I described it as Irish hair before, and I was given some feedback that not all Irish people have thick hair, so it's just hair now. We're going to commence the day. I will get off the stage now, and we'll start the day rolling.
Hi there. I'm Cecilia Wee. I'm still Cecilia Wee. I'm still the head of artist development at Arts Admin, and I'm following suit after David because we're at the lectern, so we're going to carry on being at the lectern. So welcome back. I've got a couple of announcements about things that are around in the space in the rest of the Unicorn Theatre. So please go and have a look at them, interact with them, because not everybody is excited or interested or wants to always participate in discussions. So during the breakout groups, there's lots of different options that you might want to get involved with. For example, downstairs in the claw dressing rooms, on the ground floor, there's an amazing installation, a collaborative art installation created by Linda Bell, and she's weaving a beautiful, colourful sculpture across the ceiling. And she's also got some beautiful wearable things that you can put on and have a look at. So please do go and check those out. DJ is also doing some one-to-one interventions, movement-based interventions, and that's between some of the floors on the stairs. Please also check out the cards for inclusion that we told you about earlier, and those are in the basement, just outside the toilets, and you can take a pack with you. And finally, there is a video booth next to Linda Bell's art installation space, also on the ground floor. If you really want to tell us, maybe in interpretive dance, or sing a song, and give us your feedback about the event so far. Okay, I will now hand over to Joe. Thank you. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, I am still short. I have an asymmetric bob haircut. I'm not wearing a patterned fabric today, but I am wearing big grey trousers. Thanks. And I'm of Singaporean Chinese descent.
And I'm still Jo Berrent, and I still like being behind a lectern because I'm still short, I'm still tending towards the plump side, and my hair is still grey. Possibly greyer today than it was yesterday, but it's all okay. Just a reminder in terms of access, so we have BSL up here, we have sign-supported English and lip speaking downstairs, if that's your preference. We have the relaxed viewing area, which I think a lot of people really enjoyed yesterday, because you can get up and have a cup of tea while people are speaking. Beanbags, mats, cushions, all available down there. We've asked panellists to audio describe any images that they use as we go through. If you want to go to any of the interventions that Cecilia was mentioning, we have a roving audio describer downstairs and a roving sign language interpreter for networking and the interventions too. Just at reception, ask, and you'll be linked up with them, and they can take you round. Other things in terms of access, do make use of the quiet room. We have a quiet room in one of the dressing rooms where we've got Lego. If anybody just wants to play with Lego for 10, 20 minutes. Yes, people are loving the Lego, excellent. There's ear defenders in all spaces for people who find the noise of loud, I was going to say loud people, that's possibly wrong. The noise of loud events too much. So we have the quiet space, which is a really isolated space. We also have a resting space on the first floor balcony if you want to take time out, but also want to feel more sonically connected to the event. Yeah, excellent, great. So welcome to day 2, and we're really incredibly proud and delighted to have Neil Webb from the British Council here to just kick us off today. British Council is an incredible partner to Unlimited, and it's not just about the cash. It's actually about the genuine partnership and reach that, working together, we've been able to achieve. Over to Neil.
Thank you, Jo.
Let me just readjust the microphone here. So, hello, good morning. I'm Neil, and for anyone that would find it useful, I am a 6 foot, 183 centimetre tall, middle-aged white man with increasingly greying hair. I sense a theme here. Hello again, and welcome. I wasn't here yesterday, and that's because I was hosting a live stream of this event at the British Council. And what a brilliant, gripping, inspirational, and real conversation starter it was. So I'm very excited to actually be in the room today and leave the live streaming to somebody else. Thanks to all the amazing panelists yesterday and today. Right, so I've been asked to talk a little bit about the international impact of our partnership, and I will do that, but I'm going to digress a little bit. The Disability Arts has been part of the British Council's arts programme for 25 years. But 2012, as many of you know, marked a real significant step change. When London won the bid to host the Olympics and Paralympic Games, the Cultural Olympiad made a commitment to do for disabled artists what the Paralympics had done for disabled athletes. I'm very proud to say that the British Council has been on that journey ever since and a founding partner of Unlimited. And it really has been a life-changing experience. Not only because in 2012, in August, I moved to London after 15 years in Asia. And I came back to what was the most open, multicultural, welcoming, diverse, inclusive, and quite frankly, joyful city. Things have changed a little bit since then, but I can honestly say in my lifetime, I have not been part of such a catalytic moment. The profile, positioning, and the subsequent empowerment and impact of disabled artists, both nationally and internationally, has been game-changing, and not before time. Not surprisingly, with a 35-year history, the UK's disability arts sector has come to be universally recognised as a world leader. Many of you in this room were part of that history. All of you are part of the future. Now, I couldn't possibly list all of your recent international achievements, but to give you a flavour, the British Council's Disability Arts Programme now spans 46 countries, from Armenia to Vietnam. Since 2012, in only 6 years, our partnership with Unlimited, and so many of you in this room, has already left a legacy of improved disability awareness, empowerment of disabled people, disabled leadership, flagship disabled arts festivals, mainstream programming, attitudinal, societal change, policy change, improved access in cultural venues, flagship integrated theatre and dance companies, and even the first Minister for Disabilities in Korea. And that's all through your art. Just a few weeks ago, we were also awarded a €2 million contract from Creative Europe, building on the work that we've been doing there, and that will carry on for the next 3 years. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, and you're all going to be a part of it. I'm just going to finish because I was up reflecting a lot about what we heard yesterday. And I know we all of us here in the room, listening on the live stream, consider ourselves very inclusive, tolerant, switched on, liberally minded people. Obviously, we all are, that's why we're here. But yesterday's session about intersectionality reminded me that for every other that I identify with or have come to appreciate, there are still so many intersections yet to cross. So to quote the fabulous onesie-wearing, smoky-eyed Tarek yesterday, what would it look like if we centred otherness? Well, I think it would look bloody brilliant, obviously, and it's about time. We are all the change, all of us, and especially those of you in the room who look like me. The provocation from Marlene yesterday was, if you're in a position of power, what are you doing with it? We're all on this journey. The global impact really is profound. But we're also at different stages. So I would ask you to be mindful and forgiving of new learners, who even if they've read their highway code might not be ready yet to be on the motorway by themselves, because they will make mistakes, but we all will. Reach out, support, nurture each other. Try not to judge. Keep your hands off the horn. Don't be afraid to navigate new roads and roundabouts, and maybe even learn to drive on the other side of the road. And when the time is right, put your foot down and break the speed limits. Thank you. Have a brilliant day.
Superb motoring analogy there. I hope the car was electric, you know. Anyway, I'm David Heavey again. I'm still David Heavey. I'm still as I was 5 minutes ago. And I'm just the host. So as the host of the session, all I'm going to do is read out the topic and then get out the way after introducing the chair. And the topic is attitude. And what we mean by that, you know, why is it taking so long? Why is it only 4% of the arts are disabled people? Can you speed up change? And will there ever be getting there? And of course, there's been many conferences, publications, training sessions on disability equality in the arts. Progress is undeniably slow. So how can disabled artists and allies challenge the status quo, take control and make lasting change happen more quickly? That's the theory and thesis. And to take you through it as the chair is Caroline Bowditch. Now, many of you may have thought she was actually a snail, but because the method acting was so believable. But in fact, she is one of us, a human, and she recently returned to Australia to take up the role of Executive Director of Arts Access Victoria. She was previously an unlimited artist. She is both a creative and a creative leader. So I'll hand over to Caroline to introduce the panel, and I'll get off the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is what I actually sound like when I speak English. It was lovely interacting with so many of you yesterday, and who knew so many of you spoke snailese, or snigglese even. For audio description purposes, I am officially short, unlike Joe and Cecilia, who keep saying they're short. I am 3'4" short, or 103 centimetres, depending on where you are in the world. A voluptuous woman in my 40s. You can guess where on the scale. I have curly burgundy hair, and today I'm wearing a black V-neck frock with colourful circles and flowers on it. And I'm sitting on my also ageing but lovely motorised wheelchair, otherwise known as Bertha. I have a manual wheelchair who's called Manuela, of course, but I've come with Bertha today, so yes, she's an essential part of me. As David said, I have recently taken up the role as Executive Director at Arts Access Victoria. Let me tell you a bit about Arts Access Victoria. It was established 40 years ago, and it is the driving force behind inclusive and accessible arts and culture and the cultural sector in Victoria. We're based in Melbourne, and each year we work with approximately 1,900 disabled artists. Yeah, right? It's an amazing number, and I was like, whoa, that's incredible. We don't even have that many, but we do. Yeah? We have that many. Somehow, miraculously, Arts Access has managed to capture them. I think there are lots more practising disabled artists who completely slip through the net. And at Arts Access, we've been lucky enough to capture them and therefore have the opportunity to support them in their creative development, and also to provide employment opportunities for them to continue the work that we want to do in changing the industry. I suppose the other significant thing to say is that this is the first time in Arts Access Victoria's 40-year history that they have had a disabled leader at the helm. So, I've been living in the UK for the last 16 years, as lots of you would know, but every year I've kind of gone home just to check in. Are you ready yet? Are you ready to start having those conversations that I want to have? Are you ready to really have the pot stirred? And there are lots of people in Australia that have been stirring that pot in an incredible, incredible way. But what hasn't necessarily happened is that those people haven't necessarily been sitting around the tables that they need to be at. So the voices that needed to be heard haven't been heard in a way that potentially has impact. I have learnt very quickly how important it is to have a visible disability, because I'm not expected. People still kind of do that thing of going, oh, you're the executive director. It's like, oh yeah, weren't you expecting me? Yeah. Well, here I am. Let's begin the conversation. Last year, so the creating of Sniggle came about because there was a realisation that there was no presence of, or very little presence of diversity or disabled bodies in work being presented to children and young audiences. And I know one of the things that Rachel's going to touch on is this thing about we don't achieve anything by complaining, so I had to do something about it. So created Sniggle, which is entertaining people in various places and ways. The other thing that I learnt when I was Dance Agent for Change, which I think actually is the best title that I've ever had, and as a Dance Agent for Change, so Agent for Change was started by Robert Softly Gale. He was the first Agent for Change at Birds of Paradise, which he now is the artistic director of. I was then Dance Agent for Change, and then Arts Council England adopted Agents for Change as a thing. It was like, I know it's not unique to us, but we like to think that it started in Scotland, and England followed us up on that one. But one of the things that I learnt in that role was that change, in order to change, it has to happen from the inside, and it has to happen from a place where you can be a decision maker. It can't happen by sitting in the margins at the peripheries anymore. We can have all the allies that we want, but as the brilliant Veronica Pardo, who was the ED before me, has said to me recently, we can have allies, but actually what we need is accomplices. So I have come to you looking for accomplices and encouraging you to be accomplices as well as allies, to really be in it with disabled artists, to continue and allow that leadership to happen. But we're here to talk about change. I love change because I think it's the place of incredible possibility. It's the place where actually anything can happen and we can reshape and reform in a way that actually works for us, all of us. But innately, lots of people hate change. It involves unfamiliarity, uncertainty, and can be really uncomfortable for people. Comfort zones regularly dissolve and disappear. It can mean questioning potentially everything that you know, all that you do, acknowledging your privilege and your biases, which one may or may not acknowledge or be aware of. It's often about surrendering power, and especially having an urgency to modify a learned, ingrained behaviour, to potentially change a life direction, and to even step aside and make room for someone else, which is exactly what Veronica did in allowing her to step aside and me to step in. And I will be eternally grateful for that. That's enough about me. We have an amazing panel of people, but I am here as the pot stirrer. For lots of years, you'll know that in the UK, I describe myself as a mosquito that buzzed in the ear of the arts industry. Yeah, just asking those really annoying questions. I'm going to continue to do that with this panel. I have encouraged them to be as provocative as they can be because I think that's what we need. We need to be stirring the conversation. Yeah, we need to not be polite about it, but actually to be stirring it up. So, on the panel, I am joined by the gorgeous Abbi Watson, who is a talented young performance maker, passionate about making complex risk-taking and accessible performance for a wide variety of audiences. Rachel Caldecott, who is the CEO of Everyone UK. No? .everyone. That's it. And you'll tell us more about what they do. And Abbi Hussain, sorry, who is the head of diversity, leading Arts Council England's Creative Case for Diversity, and the lovely Paula Lopez, who is from Creative Accessibility in Brazil. So you're really bringing our international flavour to the panel. So Abbi's going to kick us off.
Yes.
Brilliant. Abbi and I have a long history. And I started as one of Abbi's mentors, so it's brilliant to have you on the panel.
Yeah,
so
it's great to be here. I'm totally itching to get out of this chair, by the way, so I'm going to stand back here if that's okay. That works for everybody, okay? Yep, okay, great. So hello, everybody. As Caroline said, my name is Abbi Watson. I am, I was going to say short, but now I'm like, I'm 5'1.5". The half is important. I have short brunette hair. I'm white. I am not wearing glasses today. I'm in a white stripy dress, some trousers and some trainers, and I have earrings on. Okay, so it's really wonderful to be here with everybody today. I'm a contemporary performance maker and dance artist based in Glasgow in Scotland, and behind me, if I could get the first slide please, this is a picture of myself with only my torso in frame. I'm wearing a black unitard and I'm standing in a laundrette, as you do, and one of the washing machines, I don't know if you can see it on this because it's quite dark, but one of the washing machines behind me says the word Speed Queen. And as someone that has learning difference, I find that quite an interesting title for this image. So I'll begin my bit by telling you a wee bit about myself and my work, and then I'll share with you my own perspective and creative agency in relation to how disabled artists and our allies can instigate change. So I make solo performances, and they use dance, choreography, action, text, object, and autobiography to explore different elements of being human. Tell me if I'm going too quick, by the way, sorry. Yep. Okay, great, thank you. I'm also currently doing a practice-based PhD, and it's titled Choreographing Clumsy, Dyspraxia and Choreographic Practice, which is all about exploring the possibilities of a dance practice that embraces, experiments with, and is enhanced by the dysfunctionality of dyspraxia. Yes! Neurodiverse! Yes! Dyspraxic's in the house! Say that again? We'll talk about it. I'm very excited about that. Let's do it. So I'm neurodiverse, and I have dyslexia and dyspraxia, and they are my lens to how I understand and occupy the world. So I won't be straying too far into like heady, cerebral academic chat today, but old habits do die quite hard, so I'd quite like to start with a quote. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. And this quote, which is written in my own handwriting, says, "Human competence is defined by the values of the culture to which you belong." And that was said by Dr. Thomas Armstrong in 2010 on page 13 of his book, The Power of Neurodiversity, Unleashing the Advantages of Your Differently Wired Brain. And I identify with this quote. I feel like it says a lot about our current situation. And I feel this quote can be read in two ways. So it can be read from a mainstream perspective where perceptions of ability, value, and success, got an itchy nose, are defined by the exclusive values of mainstream culture, and the unquestioned status quo creates incorrect assumptions of the potential of disabled artists. Yet we can also take this quote from the perspective of disabled culture and the values of the disability arts movement, where human value and potential are understood on a more inclusive level, where there is space for those exclusive norms themselves to be challenged, and frequently cast aside to enable and encourage creativity and possibility that also uncovers new, artistic, exciting ground. And of course, we know that the values of these two cultures currently don't match up, so we're in this non-harmonious situation where change on the mainstream level is still desperately needed. So how do we do that? How do those exclusive values and resulting problematic opinions of competency be shifted so that change can happen and disabled artists can work without barriers and exclusion and get out there and make art and do their amazing stuff? And that's why we're here today, to discuss this really tricky problem. So my short and very honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know. And when I was writing this presentation, I really struggled with what to say in response, because this problem of how to speed up change is so colossal and complicated, and I don't know the path forward. But I do know that it must include change from all across the industry, like commitment to change from various arts councils and other gatekeepers, inclusive training and development offered from institutions, support and opportunity from different venues, platforms, and other sectors and organisations, and those opportunities to be routinely offered to disabled companies and artists. And that's a whole lot of responsibility required, like everywhere. And I am one artist. Yeah, I am one artist. So I said to myself, I am one artist, and one artist can still, that's still a powerful position to assist change. And I had to remind myself of that. And I am one artist with a strong, passionate agency and unique perspective and context to this problem, and I'm going to tell you about it. If I'm going over, could you tell me as well? Is that all right? I'm looking at you. You're there. Could you tell me if I'm like super behind on time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 10 minutes I will start to
Okay, great. Great.
Which no one's going to want.
Can I get the next slide, please? Okay. So before that, though, I feel like I'm running short on time, so maybe I won't do this bit. But I'll just describe this slide very quickly. And this is the promotional image for my new performance, Ish, which is going to be on Sunday at the Unlimited Festival. So please come. It would be really nice to have people there. Please come. And here I'm standing in some relaxed exercise wear. I'm wearing a grey t-shirt and black joggers. There is a helium balloon made of foil, and it's yellow, and it's in front of my face, and I'm catching it. And there is a space hopper, a white one, on the ground, and it's merging into the background. Okie dokies. So, as I said, I'm a dyspraxic dancer and solo artist, and my individual agency is carried through my practice and my position as a neurodiverse dance maker. I want to challenge the exclusive values of what makes good dancing. I want to question why. Why does dance culture obsess over gracefulness? Why is there an expectation of being in unison, both in group choreography but on the wider scale? So why do we still privilege specific choreographic vocabularies? Why is virtuosity centered on physical prowess and slick execution? Why does choreography need to be made of complex sequences that need to be remembered and performed perfectly? Where is the room for mistakes? Where is the space for stickiness? Where is the room for happy accidents in the performance itself? And these are the questions that fuel my practice and give me ammunition to interrogate them through performance. And of course, disabled choreographers have been asking questions similar to this for long before I've started asking these questions. And obviously Caroline Vodich is a huge figure in those. And I was going to say that I was lucky to shadow you when you were Agent for Change at Scottish Dance Theatre, and that was a hugely important time for me, and still is. So I hope to build on the ground laid by the artists that come before me by offering a neurodiverse perspective. So what fresh, interesting newness can neurodivergent and different ways of thinking, perceiving, communicating, and moving bring to dance culture? So I seek to utilize the agency of the solo artist and the authorship of the choreographer to carve out a niche that delves into the potential and possibility of a dyspraxic practice. Yeah! Yes, I'm so glad you're here. And I can aspire, and I also am interested in how that can also push the confines of how we understand a choreographic practice to be. So it's also expanding just understandings of choreography in general. 1 minute, okay, here we go. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a GIF, it's a wee moving image, and I'm in a grey studio dancing. I'd like to describe my movement quality as kind of angular, awkward and heavy, but it's also fluid, constant and smooth. And the words, I'm just a walking contradiction. The words, I want to challenge the exclusive values of what makes good dancing, flash up one by one in bold capital letters. So to conclude, and bring this back to the wider conversation about change for disabled artists, I want to say that I genuinely believe that utilising the act of creating and disseminating art is an incredibly powerful thing to do, and I wanted to remind myself of that and put that in the room today. I can also personally find it tiring and difficult, and at times I can still feel a lot of the internalised shame that I'm still carrying. And being a disabled artist and trying to make change happen, I have to remember it requires resilience, patience, strength, and aggression. And it's an incredibly powerful position, and this position can be used to instigate change on the individual level as well as the global level. Artistic expression gives us the opportunity to agitate, challenge. Oh no, she's going! Oh no, don't make me rap it! I'll say the last sentence, is that okay? And then I'll be done. Okay. No, this is great, we can do some like duo thing going.
Plan, Abs.
Oh, sorry. I'm dyspraxic, I have trouble with time. Okay, so making and showing art enables us to write our own representation, narrative, and identification, and it's crucial that disabled artists receive the support necessary for them to develop their potential, make and showcase work, for their individual agency to take hold and to disperse through culture, instigating change. Thanks, babe. Jeez, oh. Sorry, I'm sorry, by the way. That to interpret must have been. I was like, no, you were fine. Okay, great.
That was brilliant. Sorry to interrupt such important things with my interpretive dance, but it's the best way I know to time keep. You see? I was going to bring, in Australia we have these things called minties. There's a minty technique. So at 2 minutes, someone hands you a minty. At 1 minute left, you take the wrapper off. And if you're at time's up, you have to put it in your mouth and finish your presentation with it in your mouth. But I forgot to bring them with me, so I just had to go with what I know, which is contemporary dance. Thank you, Abs, for such a brilliant and gorgeous insight and really such honest questioning.
Thanks.
It's a lovely thing. Thank you. Rachel.
Let's go.
Is BBC One. And now plenty of ideas for things to do as we join the Cardiff team who say, why don't you?
Thank you. Hello. I'm Rachel, and anyone who has heard that before will know I'm in my 40s. Yeah, that is the theme of a British TV show that was on in the holidays in the early 80s, I guess. So I am 5'6", I've got brown hair, I'm wearing a large necklace and a white top, and I have a stutter, which means it's actually quite hard for me to explain things. I just have to keep talking, so bear with me. Right, what am I here to talk about? I'm talking about changing the future. And I used to work in the arts, and I don't anymore. And I don't because it drove me crazy, right? Because there were either loads of people moaning or loads of people ignoring me. And later on, there were people who were sort of not, who had listened, but were maybe not crediting. And I just found it quite tiring. But all the time that I was working in the arts, I was working in tech. So I was someone who did very early internet art stuff. And now I'm running a think tank. And I think the tanks are weird things. They basically create the change without often having visible outputs. And one of the things we try to do at Everyone is not just talk about things, not just write about things, but make things happen and make change. And the area that we're working in that is not directly relevant here, but I'll explain it for context, is trying to make technology be responsible and good for everyone. So I've been working in the internet since 1996, and at that point it was a great democratizing, open thing. And the thing that has happened over the last 20 years is that really a lot of the ways that technology is changing the world are entrenching old power and inequalities and creating new ones. And we're trying to make the world that changes that, which is really hard. It's really hard. And it's partly really hard because a lot of the things we're trying to change are happening really fast. So if I was working in a think tank that was trying to improve housing or health outcomes, I might have the ability to ask someone to do 3 years of a PhD understanding the change. But I'm trying to create change in a context where things are happening now. They happened a week ago, a month ago. And there's this kind of weird thing I feel that's happening with tech where it's kind of making time thicker and denser and bigger and harder to understand. And so rather than kind of waiting 5 years to work out how to do it, what we're trying to do is make the change now. And I've got 5 strategies. So the first most important thing to just remember is that just as complaining doesn't work, neither does wishing or hoping, right? So magic doesn't happen. I have a picture here of a rabbit in a hat. And a lot of the time, it looks like magic has happened, but that's only because you can't see the furious pedaling that's happening under the water. So, the thing number 1, understanding the system. Often, when you're trying to create the change, it's because you're unhappy, right? And you're centering lots of your thoughts and the feelings on you. And that actually, if you're trying to create the change, it's important to understand the system, to understand not only the things that are making you unhappy, but the other actors, the other things that are happening that could appear to not be relevant. This here is the system that we're working in. It's got lots of blobs on, but there are 3 main areas. We're interested in the tech industry, in government, and in a civil society. And they're like 3 areas that don't really come together. You get lots of bilateral meetings, so the civil society and tech engage, government and tech and engage, but they don't really kind of come together in the round. And the 3 the way conversation is really hard. But we're interested in kind of both bringing them together and like understanding the things that are happening in maybe more subtle, different ways. Building on Caroline's point, I think allies, the step 2, I have, excuse me, that's necklace juggling, find allies. And the reason that allies are important is a lot of the time you don't really realise there are other people who are trying to do the same thing, but they're maybe doing it differently, and they may feel to you like they're competing. They may feel to you like they're just really annoying, right? That you're like trying to do something and they keep doing a similar thing that's different, that isn't as good or, you know, right? And that actually, it's really important to put your ego aside. And the other thing is, there's a lot of the strength and opportunity that comes from working with others. It doesn't have to be all about big, joined up bits of work. It can be just about spending time and talking and acknowledging and recognising. Step 3 is about telling stories. Now, there's a thing I'm kind of interested in about the here and now, which is to everyone their own like understanding of now is very, very clear, right? And how everything is working is extremely clear. But that it's very difficult to realise that other people look at the world differently, and that they could be looking at the same thing and see something totally different. And that actually, if you can tell stories that break through, that bring it to life, that's a huge opportunity. And in the breakout afterwards, I'll be giving away a book. Come along, pick up a book, which is an example of the way that we have tried to create a different kind of change. And I don't have time to talk about it now, so come then. Super fast, speeding up. Okay, so the other important thing is most people can't imagine things. They can only see the here and now. And if you want them to understand a different thing, show it to them. Make it happen. And that a thing that I found is when you start making things happen, people join in, which leads to my last point, which is make it easy for others to join in, right? It's very easy to get up on a high horse and be like, right, I'm here now, I'm here, I'm doing it. And that actually, if the change is about a community, about the wider world, it isn't just about you, then don't make it about, I guess, your ego. Don't make it about a specific outcome. Make it about bringing others together and making it easy to take part. And I'm done. Thank you very much.
Rachel, you win the prize for stopping right on time without me needing to launch into any dance. Thank you. That was absolutely so great to have it so clearly laid out. It's like, this is how you make change, which is amazing. So thank you so much. It's got you up next, Paula. Yeah?
Does it change?
Let's go with you. Is that okay?
Fine.
Great.
All right. I wasn't prepared, so I need my time, my watch.
Okay.
When do you start?
I start as soon as you start.
Okay.
Are you ready? Synchronise our watches. 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, hello everyone. I was caught in surprise. This surprised me. I wasn't ready, but never mind. This is life, and I'm Paula Lopez, Sousa Lopez. I descend from a family, from a Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian family, So my skin, they say my skin is green, it's olive green. And I like that because I don't like calling myself white, and I couldn't say anything else, so green is good. I am 1 meter 65 centimeters, which is okay. I have long hair, but it's tied up at the back. I'm wearing a short dress patterned with flowers that resembles passion fruit flowers, and it's mainly green, like my skin, and also there's blue and a touch of orange. I'm wearing tights, brown tights, and boots that in England, or I don't know if in Scotland they say that, but in England they would say it's mousy, is it? Or brown, I don't know. It's okay because people see colors in different ways, so, and it's a cultural issue, it's a cultural item. So it's okay. I have rings. I'm wearing a red ring and my mom's ring on my left hand. And today I'm happy to be here, really happy to be here, really, really honored, and also very sad for what happened to the National Museum in Brazil. So I need to bring this subject in because a part of my job is to work with museums and galleries in Brazil. And I know the people who worked there. They were trying to be part of the network. We have an unlimited network in Rio, and it's some cultural spaces, managers, and education department managers as well, coming and gathering every month to discuss accessible resources, to discuss accessible programming, and how can we be more inclusive and mix audiences. And these people from the National Museum tried very much to be part of that for some time, and they could never do it because they didn't have money, not enough money to do the basics. So the changes that the building needed weren't there, so they couldn't come, to take part of that opportunity to be more inclusive. So I'm really sad, and I think, as lots of people say in Brazil, we will rebuild this heritage through digital material, through gathering images that people have, recordings that people have. We lost recordings from the indigenous people, the more than 200 nations that Brazil was formed. So, well, this wasn't part of the plan to speak, so I think I asked Caroline to give me 1.5 minutes, and I'm already in 3 and 30 seconds. So I am a proud mum of an 18-year-old boy called Davi, and I have been working professionally within the arts since I was 17. I'm a performer, a translator, producer, and I am now an audio describer. Very happy to do that. Behind me, there's, I'll be standing now. Now I am facing at my back, I have, Sarah's there. And, I can't be here. Never mind. This is Arts Creative Access, Acessibilidade Criativa is the name of what I've been doing. And I'm from Brazil. And this is my email, Paula Souza Lopez with Z, Souza and Lopez, @gmail.com. I haven't got business cards with me, so please do, I invite you to write to me if you want. So I have a question for all of us, including myself. What is the difference between these two sentences? May I help you? And do you need some help? What's the subject in each of the questions? Yeah, I was delivering a workshop in São Paulo, and this lady, one of the young persons who were in this workshop. It was like a young group of people who will be working in an exhibition that was going to open, and they wanted to learn more about disabled people, how to welcome disabled people to cultural spaces. And one of the ladies told a story and said, "Oh, I asked that question to a man. I saw he was blind, and he was trying to catch the underground train, and I asked him, 'Can I help you?' And that struck me because of the subject. So who was to be empowered in that situation? Her, because of her guilt or because of her drive? Maybe she's a nice person and she wants to help, but she haven't thought about it. So by the time I asked her, what's the difference in subject if you say, do you need some help? Because then you give the power to the disabled person to decide whether they want help or not. So this is very much the way I've been understanding disability arts, the social model of disability, and also my role. I don't identify neither as a disabled person nor as a non-disabled person. I've been rethinking all of these terms and the way we are in the world. So I come from a very large country. It's nearly 214 million people. It's enormous. We have 26 states plus the capital, 5,570 municipalities, and 17 municipalities, 17 cities have more than 1 million inhabitants, amounting 45.5 million people. The same number as people who identify themselves as being disabled. So it's like nearly a fourth of the population of Brazil identifying themselves as being disabled, and they are not going to the theaters. Now they are starting, but very few. I come from a very privileged environment. São Paulo is really privileged. It's huge, but we can't forget that I'm only a tiny sandstone within, a huge beach. It's nearly nothing. But we've been doing a lot. We have here Claudio and Marcel from Brazil, and they've been doing loads. They've been working really hard, and their cultural spaces are becoming more and more inclusive for the past 4 to 5 years. Because I value translation very much, I'll seem to go back to language, of course, and I noticed that for the disabled artists to be a leader of their own creation and find space to develop their work, they had to be outspoken and confident in written and spoken and gestural language, but this is not enough in most of the cases. The barriers are countless and very small financial support. So I found out that my role would be create contexts in which disabled artists would be protagonists, get together, and flourish. So there's a whole story about what I do, but I would like to show one disabled artist from Brazil. He's called Kleber Tolini, and he's a 40-year-old guy. This photograph is colored. He's facing a bud of tangerine. He's holding a bud of tangerine with his right hand, and he's looking at it. And this bud is the size of the tumor he had in his brain. And then because of that tumor, which is a medical model explanation, but he uses that within his show. And he's created a brilliant show that when you watch it, it's so powerful because he begins the show telling the whole diagnosis and the surgery he went through. But then it's so funny because he starts talking about being partially sighted. And he pretended not being partially sighted for 15 years. He went on working and trying to do things, trying to pretend he wasn't nearly blind. But in the end, he met, the whole community of partially sighted people and started by the work he's done. I'm not going to show the rest of my material because I have exceeded my time, but I still need to tell you about a performance, a show we created in Brazil called A Princesinha Medrosa, the Little Fearful Princess. So if we could move along to the next one, yeah. Oh. It's really dark. It's really dark. So let's see if my audio description works. Colored photograph, black background. At the center, 4 characters gather around a small wooden chest. At the back, there's a little fearful princess dressing her pink gown and a crown made of golden thin wire and colored beads. At her sides, the guards. One is a man, Marcos Suchara, dressing checker patterned trousers. Opposite to him, the female guard, Manuela Afonso, wearing tights with the same pattern, checked. Both have jackets similar to military ones, but made of floral fabric. But both guards have a lampshade on top of their heads, as if it were a hat. In front of the male guard, there's Amanda Assis, the sign language interpreter, to whom we created a character, Miss Stage Woman. The guards and Amanda are touching a 4-layered tower made of transparent glasses. The tower is on top of a tray that lays over the chest. All of them have their eyes shut. Princesinha is a touching story of this little fearful princess who is afraid of the dark, of being alone, of losing all she has, and one day she meets a friend by the river and learns how to listen to the stars with her eyes shut. It is a case study. It brings together audiences who they wouldn't imagine sitting beside them on a regular programming, because Princesinha has audio description within the playwriting. The dramaturgy included the description of everything that is happening throughout the play, and we have this brilliant 3 actors signing throughout the play, and they are not disabled artists, but they understood that we need to make mainstream work for more people, for a larger audience. And they learned how to sign in 1 week and a half. They trained with a teacher, with a consultant, and then when deaf people come and watch the show, they come to us and say, I haven't had such experience ever in my life. Our consultant said, throughout my childhood, I would go to children's birthday parties, and there were shows or magicians, and I couldn't understand a thing. And when I watched Princesinha, I could understand. I could feel included, and I could sit wherever I wanted. I didn't have to choose a specific seat to be in front of the sign language interpreter. So I think including resources, the accessible resources, into our practices is one way for change, one of the possible ways. It's not the only one, but it's one that is powerful and can be very provocative and interesting to challenge the mainstream sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, so sorry. It was great. It was great. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Our last speaker is Abbi Watson, and I will hand over to you, Abbi.
Thank you. For audio description purposes, I'm a British Muslim of Pakistani heritage. I have a short beard, short hair, wearing reading glasses. I'm not white. I'm the shade of a good cup of English tea with a drop or 2 of milk. I am also wearing a T-shirt which has a David Bowie-inspired stormtrooper on the front of it. And hopefully by the end of this presentation you can decide whether I'm part of the rebellion or part of the dark side. Today I want to speak to you from the perspective of an accomplice. So that's my first bit of improv for the day, and why this work matters to me. I would not be here today if it wasn't for the disability arts movement. Back in 2001, I was working at the National Grid, the company responsible for managing the UK gas pipeline network. It was during my time there that I was introduced to Zoe Partington at the West Midlands Disability Arts Forum. It was Zoe who introduced me to the social model of disability and the world of disability and deaf arts. She inspired my curiosity in the arts, giving me both the confidence and the encouragement to apply for a job in an industry as far removed from gas pipelines as you can imagine. We do share a common trend of the occasional bits of hot air, but we digress. A couple of months later, I accepted a junior job at the Arts Council as an assistant officer working on diversity and audience development. The job came with a condition. I had to shadow an arts organisation. That organisation turned out to be Dash, where I met Mike Laywood and Tanya Rabe. Zoe was my first ally and champion. Mike and Tanya, they kind of adopted me. 17 years later, I remain grateful for their support, friendship, the occasional telling off, but most of all, their act of kindness and love. The type of love that makes you believe in yourself, care about the work you do, and the people around you. It gives us the drive and the fire to do what we do and keep doing it, even when we think we have nothing left to give. Marlene captured the spirit of that work beautifully yesterday in a much better way than I ever could. Disabled and deaf people are significantly underrepresented in the arts across the world. As Caroline reflected in her blog, we know this from the conferences we attend, the publications we commission, and the data we capture. This applies across artists and curators, producers and directors, policymakers and funders. So why is change taking so long? Exclusion is a major part of that problem. The exclusion of disabled and deaf people is nothing new. It goes back decades. So many stories were shared with us yesterday, and I'm sure we'll share other stories today. It gave rise to the disability arts movement in the 70s, which has been beautifully documented through the National Disability Arts Collection and Archive launched earlier this year by Shape Arts. Exclusion results in monocultural organizations and a shift in the center of power. These organizations become difficult to penetrate and to change from within. Our networks become closed, we deal only in the familiar, we build more barriers, and the cycle repeats. We can begin to break that cycle today. Reach out to someone you don't know over coffee or the breakout session. Expand your circle of trust, share ideas, take a leap of faith. One introduction changed the course of my career. Can we do the same for someone here today? So what is the backdrop for policymakers? Globally, we're witnessing a shift in politics to the right. Nationalism is increasing across Europe, America, and Asia. In today's world, even my name, Abid Hussain, defines me as a greater risk to society than my colleagues named Darren, Simon, or Lucy. You don't want to travel with me to airports. A lived experience of any injustice should make us allies and accomplices to others who face discrimination for other reasons. Initiatives designed to advance equity and fairness are increasingly met with cynicism and criticism. Austerity measures have resulted in cuts to public spending, creating new barriers. The changes to access to work scheme in the UK have had a major impact on disabled and deaf artists. The very legislation that's designed to offer protection can sometimes have the opposite effect and hold back progress. The change we need to see may not be comfortable for some, but for others it's necessary, vital, and long overdue. We're missing the creativity and the influence of disabled and deaf leaders in the very arts organizations that need their vision, their expertise, and their challenge most. Exclusion can deny opportunities, but it can't deny excellence. Today, the majority of our disabled and deaf artists and leaders are more likely to work independently or within organizations committed to advancing disability and deaf arts. Organizations including Grey Eye, Dada Fest, Extant, Drake Music, and Vital Exposure. It should not be a case of either or. We should and must have both. Those missed opportunities and the Agents for Change program helped inspire the launch of our Changemakers initiative, a program developed to invest in a cohort of 20 disabled and black and minority ethnic leaders. Through the Changemakers programme, composer James Rose and Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra have established the world's first disabled-led ensemble as part of a professional orchestra. They made their debut at the BBC Proms last month. Yesterday, you heard from Jess Toms and Andrew Miller, 2 other members of our Changemaker cohort. The guidance for the fund when we launched it required joint applications from a named disabled or black leader and a partner organisation. As artists, leaders and policymakers, we can't change the past, but we have a responsibility to shape and change the future. We must create the conditions for all our stories to be told in the work presented on our stages, in our galleries and across our museums. Stories that are produced, curated and told by disabled and deaf artists themselves. That is essentially what the creative case for diversity is. And I'm going to digress again here slightly because I was listening yesterday during the conversation around the creative case for diversity, and this is what the creative case for diversity is. If we can't understand that, then I think we're in the wrong sector. I have 3 daughters. Their names are Miriam, Aisha, and Anissa. I can't remember the last time I went to the theatre where characters on stage had those names. If my daughters don't see themselves reflected in our work, how can we inspire them to want to work in our sector? Caroline posed the question, can we speed up change? I believe we can. In 2016, we launched the Elevate programme to strengthen the resilience of arts organisations working to advance equality and equity. It's the first time ever the Arts Council has launched a strategic funding initiative open only to arts organisations not in receipt of regular funding. Elevate recognised the need for change and greater equity. How could we support the very arts organisations that were delivering high quality diverse work to not just survive but flourish? This means being able to pay staff, invest in your boards and having the resources to develop strategic business plans. All the things that are so important to the arts organisations in England and the world but are often the most difficult to secure funding for. Investment that pays for the time to have creative conversations, develop artistic partnerships, raise income and strengthen your governance. We started with a budget of £2 million. We ended up investing £5.3 million across 40 organisations. I knew things were beginning to change when I went to Darren and our executive board for more money. If you don't ask, you don't get. Or it could have been a Jedi mind trick that I played on him. In 2017, 20 of those organisations successfully applied for national portfolio funding and will receive regular funding over the next 4 years. I'd like to close by reflecting on where we are as an Arts Council. We're setting higher expectations on our national portfolio organisations to diversify their programmes, audiences and the workforce. Those that receive more funding should do more. It was important to hear from Darren yesterday that we will take action where organisations don't deliver on their responsibility. We can't keep talking about aspiration, we need to see change. Only 6% of our staff at the Arts Council self-define as disabled. That's not good enough. I want us to be an organisation disabled and deaf people want to work for. To be an effective ally, we need more disabled and deaf people leading our work on policy development and making funding decisions. I want us to be open to challenge and collaboration. Change is a collective responsibility. We're currently consulting with the sector on developing our 10-year strategy. It's a genuine opportunity to shape our vision and priorities for the future. It's my hope that by 2030, we are no longer talking about change, but actively engaged and benefiting from it. Institutions don't change unless the people who run them do. If we're not prepared to change, then we should hand over power and funding to those who are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abbi. We've got 5 minutes. It's just so exciting. Before we need to move on, so I've got a question to all of you because we're going to break up into groups in a minute and have a conversation. But I've got a question for all of these guys. which is the question, how do we know when it's done? It's never done.
I mean, that's the thing, is that it depends on what you want to achieve. Because if you're just creating a change for you, your change can go from A to B. But actually change needs to, the problem is that if you think it's done, there'll be other people who are excluded for other reasons.
Sorry, your microphone is a bit weird.
Sorry.
And that's it.
Just following off what you were saying, I guess to say how do we know when it's done suggests there's like an end game, or there's like the thing that we're all searching for, but actually that's not how the world works. The work, oh my goodness, you can tell I'm making a piece of performance. I'm like, the work. No, the world is always in flux and always moving forward. So maybe it's about the gap being shortened and moving, I don't know, there's like a different future. I don't know. Is that clear? Okay.
I think it's evolving. I don't think we can accept that there's a certain standard that we need to reach. I mean, I was talking to Ruth earlier this morning, and one of the things we were reflecting on earlier after yesterday's conversation was about when we use the term mainstream. And actually, I think mainstream's kind of become short code for who gets the big funding. And I guess one of the things I was thinking about when I was speaking to Ruth is, what would someone like Ruth be able to do if she had the budget, for example, of a national theatre? And I could tell by her smile and what she's doing in the audience right now, you would see incredible difference. So I think it's about having different people in positions of power who can actually make things happen.
Yeah, could I just say that setting a goal in time, then I think you are done by bits. So you set a goal and then you're done. So when I watched Wendy Who's, and I have to thank the British Council because my life wouldn't have changed 5 years ago if it wasn't for the program and developing the program in Brazil. And Wendy Who's was a show that inspired me to create a Princesinha the way it is at the moment. We couldn't do that with disabled artists because it was a project thought by non-disabled artists, but they were really keen on exploring the possibilities, the artistic, the aesthetics of this new language. We recreated something new, innovative. So that goal, that is done, but that is not enough. That is just the beginning of something that might explode. And we need more multipliers. We need more people doing what we are doing here. And spreading the word and really impacting other practitioners or other artists or cultural managers.
Great, and we need to be making that easy.
And we need money.
Join.
Yeah, of
and
course.
We need money.
We need
Lots
money.
of money.
Of course, we do.
Money! Brilliant. I know that David's about to tell us which rooms we're going to go to, but I would just love all of you to please thank the incredible presentations.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you very much to the panel. And as the usual format, we're going to break out into groups now. So the Western is Rachel Caldecott and Abbi Watson, chaired by Abid. At the Claw is Caroline Bowditch. At the Foil is Paula Lopez. And at the JLR is moi. So go where you like, and you don't have to go into these. You can go see the art, you can chill out, you do what you like. There will be refreshments in each of the breakout areas. So we'll go straight on to that now. So we'll see you all in about 5 or 10 minutes in those zones. Thank you very much.